Have you guys always been diversified with livestock?
Yeah, kind of like the movie The River Runs Through It. Well, our farm, the creek runs through it. So you can't, you can't, you can't farm all of our acres. So we got to have cows. And, the integrating livestock is something that is hard for a lot of people because usually it's their dads or their granddads sold their cattle. They're the
Right.
ones that knew how to work it,
Mhm.
all that.
Well, livestock are much more labor intensive than grain.
Yeah, and
At least that's my perception.
they are. And I guess the nice thing about having them is one, I don't have to worry about what I'm doing with those idle acres because, you just put the cows out on it. But two is what you're doing is you're utilizing your fodder after you're done with corn harvest, soybean harvest, whatever. You're getting instead of bringing in truckloads of manure, the cows have legs and they're just walking around eating. Ray Ward he goes, I just don't understand why people haul in manure or why they bale off the corn stalks, stuff like that. He goes, are their cows' legs broke? That one will always stick with me. It just, when we get into the biological side of things, all these compost reactors that people are building and stuff like that. And Tom Hogemeyer talked about, buffalo are what built the soils of the Great Plains.
Sure.
The biome that's in their gut, and the closest thing that we have is cattle.
Mhm.
So I don't see why, at least if you have cows, why you shouldn't be trying to get them across every acre. You're inoculating that soil. You had a great conversation with Tom about all that stuff, the microbes and how it takes time to shift that population so that it's actually working with you.
Right. That's so. I mean, I'm a meteorologist by
Right.
trade. My parents both grew up on farms, so I have family that still farm. But the aspect of livestock being beneficial to the soil was that's something that I've sort of learned in the last couple of years, like why it's actually really critical. Is it actually is very important for the microbial activity in the soil, and yeah, these tall grass the prairies in this part of the country were thriving probably in large part because of the buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we did a pretty good job of not only eradicating the buffalo, but turning up all the grass and planting other crops. And
When you read the history of how the Native Americans managed the buffalo herds, like
Mhm.
it was actually a very concentrated effort on their part. Because one, that was their food, but two, how do you keep them in an area around where you're going to be? So
Right.
that's the burnings and they'd burn the prairie every once in a while and stuff like that. And the worst thing that happened to the buffalo is what we did to the natives.
Sure.
Because then the buffalo overpopulated because they didn't have the natives hunting them,
Mhm.
and then that's
So they were
when,
they were managing the buffalo population in a
yep,
sustainable way.
yep, it precisely they were doing it because it doesn't work if it's not sustainable, at least in that time frame.
Hmm.
So, kind of in that same vein, we're trying to figure out how to increase our herd size. Um, we took our first step last year. Boy, that was a rough one to keep. When you're getting $2,700 a head for 1,000 pound heifer, it's really hard to save those animals back because that's the way we do it. We do line breeding, so that means is we've always kept the same line of cows. We just change out the bulls.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of headed down that regenerative path. We ended up spending a little bit of money and buying the poly rope reels and all the step in posts and everything. And, we started giving the cows about an acre and a half at a time, moving them every day. And, the time commitment's a little bit bigger when you're just learning how to do something. But the benefits that we saw, when they mob graze it, they can't take it all the way down. They won't do it. You have fouling and you have trampling and all that. So they really only eat about half of it, which is fine. You're like, I used to think, oh my goodness, they're only going to eat half of it. What are we going to do with, if they only eat half of it? But when you move them on like that, what you're doing is you're letting that grass regrow immediately instead of turning them out in a 15 or 20 acre pasture where they eat all the good stuff and then they start eating that regrowth. That's where you really start setting your pastures back. But when you can let them hammer it and you move on and let the regrowth occur immediately.
So it's moving them constantly.
Yep. Kind of like buffalo.
Gotcha.
That's the idea.
Was that kind of how their grazing practices similar? Like they would concentrate on an area, then move.
Yep. Move on to find water. Or if predators pushed them, or natives pushed them.
Do you have to haul water in sometimes to the cattle?
Yeah, but that's our own doings. That's our own choice. It's just what we have to work with right now. But
Sure.
It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you can lay your pasture out any way you want to doing it this way. It's just temporary fencing. So, all you got to do is move one gate handle this way and you got water.
Yeah.
So
you talked about goals earlier. Do you have a goal in mind for how much you'd like to increase your herd size in the next, say, 5 10 years?
I think if we can get up to about 60 pair, that would be a good number. What I'm also kind of looking at doing, the more I crunch numbers on this whole regenerative thing and inside my operation, I should say Dad and I can see the space to regenerate the ground, have more cattle, and maintain some sort of row crop part of it. But the cattle, I can see how this endeavor turns into raising more cattle and be more concerned about that than the row crops, because just how powerful of a tool they can be in regenerating your soil. One of the ideas is like every fourth or fifth year, you would cycle out with wheat, and then you have a cover crop planted, a warm season cover crop, and then you graze that. Well, shoot, that's 40 or 80 or 160 acres of cover crop that you can utilize, and then you can hit your pastures in the spring, and then they get all summer off.
Yep.
And what does that do for carbon sequestration? Those perennial systems are where the actual carbon capture really happens.
Right.
So,
and are you concerned, or are you actually in any of the voluntary carbon markets, or part of any of the conservation programs geared toward that? Or should I not ask?
I am currently signing up for a carbon market. Of course, this is pie in the sky. They're saying, captured carbon is going to be worth $450 a ton. Right now it's at 90.
That's a big difference.
It is, but if you can capture a couple tons a year and you're only giving them 60, or you're only giving them 40% of it for doing all the market stuff with it, what would an extra, let's just say it stays at $90. What would an extra $90 an acre do for somebody?
Potentially quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, really. You want to talk about moving the needle and doing stuff and getting things to move the right way, something like that. Because if you're just focusing on carbon, getting that put back in, you're addressing almost every other issue.